If you want to know why I decided to trade this flagship digital mixer from Presonus for this little plastic Zoom recorder and what my motivations were, then stick around. Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we'll be discussing something indirectly related to music, and after a time of consideration I've decided to make some changes to my recording setup. And as you might have guessed, the title of this video is a bit provocative. The question of whether these two mixers are truly comparable can only be answered with a classic "it depends." Some sound engineers might be sitting at home right now and watching this video and thinking, what kind of confused nonsense is this guy talking about? Or why would this guy buy a professional mixer if he doesn't even know how to use it properly? But let me get straight to the point. This is all about my personal requirements, so I'll tell you that later, and my experience, which I'm happy to share with you. Perhaps some of you are in a similar situation or facing the same question, and at the end of the video I also include the direct sound comparison with some music samples. Up until now I've been using the Presonus Studiolive digital mixer, which I bought secondhand a while ago from a nearby seller. It's a professional grade mixer that comes with all the advantages of the digital world, suitable for both live performances and music productions. It boasts excellent build quality, really good preamps, reliable AD converters, a great effect section, versatile routing options, plenty of inputs, a logical workflow, plus it doubles a 16-channel audio interface. At the time, what mattered to me was having enough inputs for my gear, good quality converters, and an intuitive workflow for the basics. But as you might know, having a studio full of keyboards, synthesizers or groove boxes often means spending a lot of time figuring out how these everything effectively use. Truly mastering every device's detail it's a challenge, and I believe only a few actually achieve this, to know their gear perfectly. That was also the case with this mixer. Whenever I wanted to use specific features or revisit ideas I hadn't touched in a while, I'd often find myself diving back into a really big manual. Now, after a few years, I realized I was only utilizing about 30% of the mixer's potential. For a hobbyist musician like me, who mainly plays for fun or himself and occasionally record a track to upload it on YouTube or maybe on SoundCloud, this mixer for me was absolutely overkill. Many of its features are geared toward live or band scenarios. For effects, I often relied on the internal ones of my keyboards or the DAW, which meant I rarely used the mixer's filters, EQs, gates, expanders or compressors from this great fat channel. When I wanted to record something quickly, it usually meant powering up my computer, setting up the mixer and the DAW, then starting to record. This process was often time-consuming, especially for smaller projects when you have just 1 or 2 or 3 tracks. The mixer also uses a FireWire 400 connection, which I accessed via an interface card on my Windows system, and while it generally worked well, the setup was sometimes finicky, requiring me to turn devices on in a specific order. Then things didn't sync, I have to restart everything, wasting my time and patience. So for quicker recordings, I often use the field recorder, in my case the Zoom H6. Now I have to be careful because this is the one I'm using for that voice here. I used the H6 to capture the stereo mix directly from that mixer, so I get the stereo out. And while this workflow was convenient, the resulting mixes often lacked the balance. Some instruments were too quiet, others too loud, and the final output didn't meet my expectations. So most of the time I'm working with hardware only, such as sequencers or groove boxes or the synthesizer arranger keyboards, and so I started looking for a solution tailored to my actual needs. So a multi-channel interface or a mixer that works standalone without a computer or a DAW, a device that is simple and intuitive operating on what you see is what you get principle, a setup without unnecessary features or controls, unlike the full-featured channel strips from a big mixer like EQs and compressors. And hands-on controls was important, such as physical faders and knobs for the basic functions, and the ability to quick report multiple individual tracks for the post-production. Lastly, I didn't want to compromise on sound quality. The preamps and AD converters needed to match or exceed the performance of the Presonus mixers. And so after exploring options from brands like Behringer, Tascam, Yamaha, I decided on this Zoom mixer. Whether it will stay as my go-to solution and fully meet my needs, only time will tell. For now, I will do a quick sound comparison and show you how I set this sound recordings. Here is how I set up the test environment for this comparison. The sound source is that Yamaha Genius, and its two stereo outputs are routed into channel 1 and 2 of the Presonus mixer and simultaneously into the line input of the Zoom mixer. And I'm not going to deep dive into technical measurements or overlay details analysis. This is more about a direct listening comparison and how the Zoom performs compared to a professional mixer. The goal is to demonstrate what it sounds like when you're recording from a home studio and, for example, uploading it to platforms like, for example, YouTube, Spotify or SoundCloud. For the Zoom mixer, I record directly onto the SD card using the internal recorder. For the Presonus mixer, the signal will be sent to the capture software on the computer, which also records WAV files directly. The post-dynamic processing on the Presonus and the effects on the Zoom are turned off to ensure only to get the raw signal which is captured. Both mixers are leveled at -12 recording levels, and the recordings are done at 48 kHz and 24-bit resolution. Any slight volume differences will be adjusted later using software, so we can have a fair and direct comparison after normalization of the two signals. I will play various styles on the Genius, covering genres like rock, pop, EDM or some jazz classical music to test the broad frequency range and different dynamics. During the playback, I switch between the mixers at the breaks. You can see it when I press the break button. The tracks will be soloed or muted in the editing software. For listening comparison, I'll include two software tools for the analysis. First, the Youlean Loudness Meter 2. It's a free version, which you can download as well. This will show us the loudness levels of the recordings, because difference in loudness could skew the comparison. On the left, you see the LUFS, the loudness units full scale target range for both recordings. At the top, you will see the current loudness value, and below that, the integrated loudness, which averages the measurement over the time. At the bottom, the true peak maximum shows the loudest point reached by the recording. These values are derived directly from the recorded WAV files. I will adjust the loudness and the true peak for YouTube specifications later, as the platform requires a target loudness of -14 LUFS and a true peak of -1 dB. The second tool is a real-time spectrum analyzer from Voxengo, which is also free to download. This will allow us to visually compare the frequency spectra of the recordings in real time and check for any significant differences. For instance, we'll see if any frequency ranges are cut off by the converters. I'll include links to both free VST plugins in the video description. But the most important aspect, of course, is the listening test. I love to hear your opinion. Since you'll be watching this video on a variety of playback systems, maybe the one in the car, the other on the headphones or the smartphones or at the computer, do you notice any differences, or do both devices sound the same to you? Do you think I made the right decision given in my situation? How would you conduct such a test, or do you think such comparisons are entirely pointless? Maybe you are in a similar situation. Let me know it in the comments below. But now let's go to the practical test. As I said, I'm looking forward to your opinions. Thanks for watching. I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like or a comment. That would motivate me for other videos. Thank you. Bye bye.